she's in the process.
It's streaming, it's not recording. Did you hit the button? I did. Okay, it's good. Okay, I'm sorry.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll call the meeting of the McHenry County Zoning Board of Appeals to order. The reason for today's hearing is petition number 2023-050. The applicant is Toro Construction CS Partnership LLC. The request is for a conditional use permit to allow for a commercial solar energy facility. The PIN number for this application is 04-27-400-001. The address is South Solon Road, Spring Grove, Illinois. The property consists of approximately 46.63 acres and is located on the west side of South Solon Road, approximately 1,155 feet south of the intersection of US Route 12 and South Solon Road in Richmond Township, Illinois. At this time, I'll have members of the zoning board who are here to introduce themselves, starting on my right. We have one coming late and one that we're not sure of, but I think they'll both be here shortly. So if you introduce yourself in the township in which you reside.
Jessica Beverly, Door Township.
Kurt Schnabel, Riley Township.
Vicki Gardner, Nunda Township.
I'm Linnea Kustra in Alden Township.
Robert Kozin, Algonquin Township.
This petition has been reviewed and the following items have been received prior to today's scheduled hearing. The publisher's certificate of publication from a newspaper is dated January 26, 2024, and thereby meets ordinance requirements. The affidavit of posting was signed and the date posted was January 25, 2024, and thereby meets ordinance requirements. Affidavit of mailing was signed and the date mailed was January 22, 2024, and thereby meets ordinance requirements. The survey has been checked against the petition, legal notice, and publication in the newspaper, and all three match. The filing fees have been paid. The endangered species consultation has been received. The McHenry County Soil and Water Conservation District report has been received, and that would be NRI number 23-0824542. At this time, I would just like to swear in anyone who will be giving testimony, asking questions, making comments today. Anybody who would be participating in this hearing, I would ask you to raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, so just to people that maybe haven't attended a zoning hearing before, how the hearing will work is the petitioner will present their evidence why the solar farm should be granted by the county. They'll give their testimony, they'll be asked questions by the board, and then maybe by staff, and then if there's any member of the public that wants to ask a question of their testimony, you'll have the opportunity to do that. We have a 3-minute time limit per person. And so if you have several questions, you might want to coordinate them with other people if you're here together, if there's something else you want to ask. So it's 3 minutes per person. And then at the end of that time, then we will take a report from the staff. And then when all that's finished, if you have comments that are your views on this, then you'll have the opportunity, again, 3 minutes per person, to state your comments on this petition. So the first time is just questions of the petitioner about their testimony. The second time would be your comments. So at this time, we'll just turn it over to the petitioner. If you would introduce yourself and go ahead and give us your testimony on this hearing.
My name is Matthew Valbert. I'm with Westwood Professional Services, and we are the environmental engineering consultant to Forefront Power and Toro Construction. So we have completed many of these documents.
Okay, go ahead with your
And,
presentation.
yep, so we're here today for the Bagby Solar Project, which is a 24.6 acre project area on the northern portion of a 46.63 acre parcel. This project will be a 3.25 megawatt AC or a 4.7 megawatt DC project, which will consist of a single axis tracker system with 8,710 individual panels or modules and 13 inverters. If we can get the site layout up. So the project will consist of panel banks, 2 pads with inverters and the other equipment, and then an access road back to there that has the, this is a 20-foot wide access road, so it meets the fire requirements, and it has a hammerhead turnaround that meets the fire requirements. We are also proposing vegetation screening along the entire east side of the project along Solon Road, and then also extending 500 feet back from the road on the north side and the south side of the project area. The entire site will be enclosed in a 7-foot tall perimeter fence. And then the spacing from the panels to the fence will be a minimum of 20 feet. And then the interconnection point will be just north of the access road along Solon Road there. So so that is the project in a nutshell. We know that we've received some comments from neighbors and we want to address their concerns. And so one of the first comments, and we get this in a lot of solar projects, is about panel breakage and possible, groundwater, soil contamination from leaching materials from the panels. The panels are mostly constructed of inert materials. There are some very limited, electrical components in them that do contain, some metals and things like that. But the important thing to know is that the array is monitored by a computer system that is actually monitoring the ongoing panel function. And so when a panel breaks, the system alerts the maintenance crew, and then the maintenance crew, replaces the panel as quickly as possible, because we're trying to generate electricity, so we don't want to have panels out there that are not functioning. So those panels will be replaced and recycled or disposed of as appropriate. The second comment we've seen from a lot of neighbors is screening. We understand that the neighbors have concerns about their visual impacts of the solar facility. So, we are proposing a screening, and some more information around the screening is that the screening will consist of 2 rows of native shrubs. And so we generally use 4 species. The first one is a species of Abrovites, so it's like a cedar species that's evergreen year round. And then we use 2 species of Viburnum, which they hold their leaves in the winter, so there's still screening involved. And then a species of 9-bark, which also holds its leaves in the winter. And so the Arborvitaes grow to 12 to 15 feet tall and 8 to 10 feet wide at maturity. The Viburnums grow 10 to 15 feet tall and 10 to 12 feet wide at maturity. And then the 9-bark species grows 6 to 8 feet tall and 6 to 8 feet wide at maturity. And so with those 2 rows, it does a good job. And the Viburnum and the 9-bark are actually fairly fast-growing shrubs, so they grow from 12 to 24 inches a year. And then the cedar species grows a little slower at 8 to 12 inches a year. So that hopefully addresses some of the screening concerns. And the other thing on this project is that there's actually a fairly robust tree line on the south side of the Bagby parcel that is kind of covered by our setback there. But there is already in place a pretty well screened tree line. And that tree line on the back half of the western half is very heavy, and then it kind of dissipates out. So for about 720 feet from the road to where the screening gets heavy, it is a little more sparse. But after that, it definitely does provide quite a bit of existing screening. The other thing we have seen comments on is the effect on natural resources and endangered species on the site. So our plan for the site is that we will be planting a short grass prairie type seed mix underneath the solar array, and that's composed of a number of short in height perennial prairie grasses, and then a couple species of sedge, and then we also include in that mix 3 forbs, including partridge pea, purple prairie flower, and black-eyed Susan. And 2 of those are also nitrogen fixing species. So underneath the panels will be a native non-invasive seed mix that will be established. And then in the perimeter of the site, we plan a much more robust, what's is called a pollinator mix. And so that is a mix of a few more grass species and quite a few more forbs. And what that does is that provides quality habitat for pollinator species, butterflies and bees. And on this site, the special note is that the rusty patch bumblebee is a listed species of concern in the area. Right now, with the row crop farmland, the habitat potential for them is essentially 0. They don't utilize cropped fields, but that the likelihood of those species using the site will actually increase by quite a bit with the pollinator mix becomes established. So for that species especially, it's actually going to provide a better habitat than it does currently after construction. The second species of concern that was brought up is the Blandings turtle. So that is a large aquatic turtle that's threatened and endangered in quite a few states. I understand that there's a fairly high population on some of the parkland in this vicinity. And our goal is actually to avoid impacts to the turtles also. So during construction, we would have special restrictions in place to reduce turtle mortality while we're constructing the site. And then after the site is constructed, if you can see the fence line there, we're actually going to be converting that northern piece. There's a 50-foot wide buffer, and then there's also that area kind of where it says 20-foot wide access drive there. That's going to be kind of stay natural. And so that could actually provide more turtle nesting habitat after construction. And the other thing is there was some concerns for wetlands. So we are avoiding, you can see there's that kind of that finger pointing down on the west end of the property. So that is a wooded area that we are completely staying out of. So we are placing all of our materials, or all of our construction footprint is within areas that are currently cropped. So we're not disturbing any areas that are existing natural areas. It's all going into cropland at this point. And then we got the comments kind of late from the Park Conservation District, but the other thing is like they had some concerns about groundwater and the site suitability. So when the time comes, we will be doing a geotech report. So there will be geotechnical borings out there, and the piers will be engineered to be in poor soils essentially. So the geotech report, so all the piers will be pounded piers. The grading on the site will be very minimal. The only grading should be for the access road because the site is very flat. And then all the piers will be directly pounded into the ground as steel piers so that the soil disturbance is minimal. And the way we get around bad soils is the geotech report determines what the soil load bearing is, and then the length of the pounded piers is how we make sure the length is appropriate for the soil type. So and I'm not an engineer, but that's what our engineers tell us, like how these are designed. And then the wetlands issue is also raised, so there will be an on-site wetland delineation completed before project construction. I'm actually a certified wetland delineator here in McHenry County, so we understand the rules. And if any wetland permitting is required, it would be completed, through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And then a full SWIP will be done for the project, so there will be a stormwater management plan that will adhere to the McHenry County requirements for their stormwater ordinance. And if any ponding is required, the plan would be slightly revised to take it to handle that. But the plan usually is to try to avoid ponding by reducing the amount of impervious surface to the least amount possible. Yeah, and so the other thing is like, the district had some comments, about it being an appropriate use next to the parkland. We understand that they burn, and that really does not affect us because our maintenance of the panels would account for things like soot deposit and things. even in cropland, you know, there's a lot of dust and dirt and things like that deposited on those panels. I mean, even just from combining corn, you know, not even plowing. And so again, back to the panel system monitors the output of the electricity, and like when something like that happens, you know, you get a couple windy days and they're covered in dirt, you know, they'll see the energy production go down, and then the maintenance crew will handle maintenance as appropriate. So burning would be the exact same thing. We would just handle maintenance as needed, you know, if there was soot on the panels. You know, there's a 50-foot setback along the edge of the property. So the burning activities that need to come up to the property really, again, won't have any effect on us. You know, when the district burns, I'm assuming they do everything they can to keep their controlled burns controlled on their property. So it really wouldn't be any different than if it was a crop field or the neighbors' houses. So that is not an issue from our end. And then also, you know, they raise that this land is like slated for preservation for them. And, you know, this is not a permanent preservation, but this would put this land into a 35-year cycle of no more cropping. It would be in a native non-invasive seed mix. It would provide habitat for wildlife. It would also provide probably a lot of water quality benefits for the stream, because it would go from row crop agriculture with, you know, runoff during heavy storm events to native cover that's going to hold the water on site, going to filter the water before it releases it more slowly back into the stream system. And we definitely are willing to work with the district. You know, we had a great conversation before this meeting. You know, we're looking to be good neighbors, so we definitely would continue those conversations with them moving forward.
Is there anything else?
That's about all I have, but I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, well, there are some conditional use standards that need to be met. And I saw in your packet how you addressed the non-specific ones, but I would like you to first go through the principal use standards for a commercial solar energy facility. And you don't have to read them out necessarily, but I'd like you to address them to make sure that everything has been covered. I know you've covered a few of them already in your testimony.
Sure.
But there might be some others.
Yep. For number 1A, we have the EcoCat in the report, and again, that brought up the rusty patch bumblebee and the Blandings turtles. And then B, we do have a site plan. It's been reviewed by the county, and we've made some revisions to make sure that we are meeting all of the details that are required. And then C, yep. So we've gone through the application, and we feel that we've addressed and we have included everything that we were required to submit at this time.
So if you go through the site design, there'll be separate things there.
Yeah, yep, so again, part A, we are meeting all the 50-foot setbacks from all the lot lines and the 150 feet from any residence, so we've met the setbacks. We are not exceeding the 20 feet in height, and we are using underground up until the poles start to tie into the existing overhead. We will comply with the lighting. The only lighting planned on site would be a single access point light that's downward facing. Yep, and then our solar panels they're minimizing glare. They've been designed to minimize glare. And then again, E, we are avoiding all the woodland savannas. We're planning on completing the wetland delineation to avoid wetlands to the extent possible. We will complete a drain tile survey as a part of the agricultural impact mitigation agreement that we have with the state. And that was submitted and has been fully executed. So we are already under obligation to complete the drain tile survey, and we will be providing that to avoid drain tile impacts and repairing any. Our encroachment into the floodplains is very minor, and again, we're proposing no grading in the floodplain. The only features that would be in the floodplain are going to be panels and fence posts that'll be pounded. So the cross section of the floodplain would not be changed. And then F, yep, we've already talked about that we are planning seed mixes, and we did speak to the district, like I said before the meeting, and we're definitely, we have a preliminary mix, but we're definitely willing to work with them to come up with a mix that maybe is more, that they feel would be better suited for the site. Yep, G, fencing, we're going to comply with the code fencing, and we're also keeping the height to 7 feet, which was the county request. And H, we are screening the entire site within 500 feet of all non-participating residents or road right-of-ways. And then so we will prepare a landscape monitoring and maintenance plan to ensure that the establishment continued maintenance of the species. And again, we'll work with the district if they would like some modifications to that. J, yep, we have the fully executed agricultural impact mitigation agreement with the state. And we acknowledge that we will provide the executed road right use agreement with the county highway department before we can commence construction. We also will prepare the emergency management plan, accepted and reviewed by the county and the local fire district for the site. We shall provide a sign that's providing the name of the operator and a phone number in case of emergencies on the site. And we will provide access and appropriate notice for the site for the county and the local fire district. Generally, we do that through a Knox box for the fire. And then D, all damaged panels shall be repaired or replaced within 60 days of the damage, and we shall keep the ground free of all debris from damaged panels at all times. And again, I kind of talked about that earlier with the computerized monitoring system that lets us know that. So, you know, we don't even have to visually inspect. We should know that they're not functioning right away. Yep, and we acknowledge that the abandonment, and we will be providing a decommissioning plan is a requirement, and it will meet all the county and the state AIMA requirements. And that will include the estimator's estimate of cost. And we will provide the updated engineer's estimate of cost every 10 years as required.
Okay, and then the other general conditional use standards, I'd like you to run through those as well. I know they were in your application, but just for the benefit of the
I don't
public.
have those one on the slide.
What's that?
I don't have those ones on the slide.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Let's see, it's on, if you have the packet with you, sir, it would be on page 4 of your packet. Or no, those are the staff conditions.
Yeah, those are staff.
Sorry. Let's see, it's on probably, oh, it's not even on, is it not in the packet? I don't see that it's in the staff report. What's that? I know it was in your presentation that you sent to the board. Let's see if I can find it in here. I think it was Appendix E in your report, sir.
I'm sorry, D as in dog?
E,
E, okay.
isn't it?
I believe we have the conditions up on screen now.
Sorry.
Wait, who was the cat?
Yeah. There we go. Now everybody can see.
Oh,
it
yes,
on the
yep.
screen. Okay. So number 1 is what you just covered under the use standards and the site development standards. So you can start with number 2.
Okay, yep, let me just get down to my. Okay, so number 2 is the conditional use compatible with the existing or planned future development of the area? And our response would be that the proposed project would change the existing use of the subject property only, and no effects on surrounding residences, agricultural areas, or commercial developments are expected. Number 3 is the conditional use detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comforts, or general welfare of the area? And our response would be, because there are no significant associated traffic impacts and no dangerous or hazardous chemicals contained within the PV modules, there are no anticipated adverse effects to the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. Rather, this project will provide an alternative clean energy source of power, clean source of power for the region. Number 4 is, will the conditional use be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the area? Our response is that the proposed project will be situated in land that's adequately set back from the surrounding residences. The applicant intends on utilizing PV modules for the system which use a non-reflective glass and are designed to absorb light rather than reflect it, thus reducing the glinting glare to the adjacent roadways and residences. Furthermore, the noisiest components of such solar farms are the inverters, which generate a low buzzing sound as they convert electricity from direct current to alternating current. This noise is generally not audible above the ambient noises outside of the perimeter fence. The proposed project would remove land from agricultural production on the subject property only, and no effects on the surrounding agricultural, residential, or commercial areas are expected. Number 5, will the conditional use substantially diminish and impair property value in the area? Our response is that the existence of this solar project is not expected to affect the value of land and buildings surrounding the project area. According to the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, once constructed, solar projects require little maintenance and no on-site employees. Number 6, are adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other facilities provided? The applicant will provide all the required documentation associated with both public and private utilities once site-specific engineering and design components are determined. At this point, we feel that there are adequate utilities, access roads, and no issues with the project. Number 7, have conditional use operations been designed to provide ingress and egress to minimize traffic congestion and hazards on public roads? Our response is, the project will be designed to provide adequate ingress and egress for local traffic conditions. Due to the location of the project area and relatively small size of the proposed project area, traffic impacts are expected to be minimal. Once constructed, traffic conditions on site will be limited to approximately 1 utility vehicle per month accessing the site for maintenance purposes. Number 8, will the conditional use conform to the applicable standards of the underlying zoning district? Response is, the proposed project is located within McHenry County, Illinois, in the A1 Agricultural Zoning District. The solar project is on a parcel of land that is currently used as cultivated cropland. The impact to agricultural land is only temporary, as the project is leased and will be returned to the current agricultural status once the lease terms are up. Accordingly, the proposed project will comply with all the ordinances, requirements, and regulations set forth by McHenry County and will obtain all necessary local and state permits. Number 9, will the conditional use be reasonable in the interest of public welfare? Our response is, because there are no significant associated traffic impacts and no dangerous or hazardous chemicals contained within the PV modules, there are no anticipated adverse effects to the public health, safety, morals, and comfort, or general welfare. Rather, this project will provide an alternative clean source of power for the region. And number 10, will there be adequate measures taken to provide protection to groundwater recharge and groundwater quality? Our response is, the proposed project is not anticipated to produce adverse long-term impacts to water quality within or near the project area. In general, solar energy is a clean and cost-effective form of renewable energy with no significant water inputs required during operation. As such, the project is not expected to impact hydrologic flow of surface water or groundwater. Groundwater recharge will also remain unchanged as a result of construction activities.
Okay. Well, thank you for covering those. Before we go to questions, I would just like Ms. Charlo to just remind us of the state laws that are regarding siting of solar farms that we must follow.
Sure. So last year, the state of Illinois did pass some new laws that regulated the siting of solar farms in Illinois. I'll just read the paragraph and then kind of summarize it. A request for siting approval or a special use permit for a commercial wind energy facility or commercial solar energy facility or modification of an approved siting or special use permit shall be approved if the request is in compliance with the standards and conditions imposed in this act, the zoning ordinance adopted consistent with this code, and the conditions imposed under state and federal statutes and regulations. So essentially, the counties are required to pass the approval on these as long as they meet the minimum standards that the state has outlined. So minimum setbacks, separation from adjacent residences, things like that. They do give the counties the ability to add some conditions that aren't more restrictive than what they've outlined here. So vegetative screening is one of them that we have the ability to add. But other than that, as long as it meets those minimum siting requirements, the counties are required to approve.
And have they met the minimum sightings?
I believe they have.
We'll start questions on my right, Ms. Bolden.
Thank you. Bear with me, I have questions for staff and for the petitioner, and I'll just go back and forth. In your application, you indicated that you were going to do a vegetative mix, possibly native, maybe not. In your testimony, you said that you were planning on doing partridge pea, sedges, brown, black-eyed Susans inside the panels, and a DNR certified pollinator mix on the 20-foot surrounding it.
Everything will be native, sorry if that, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, everything will be native. We just use two different mixes, so the mix under the panels will be a little bit simpler mix, and lower growing, just for maintenance issues. But again, it will be consisting of native grasses, and then those 3 native forbs that we listed.
Does the inside mix meet the DNR pollinator scorecard standards?
I don't know that, I'm not the seed expert, but if it doesn't, we definitely can meet that if that's a requirement.
Well, so
and-
where,
yep,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, so, and this mix is preliminary at this point because we haven't completed that step yet. So, yeah, and again, we need to make sure our mix complies with the AIMA standard, and I believe it does. I'm just not the seeding expert, so I can check that, but I'm sure it does because, again, we need to meet that AIMA
Right, you have to
standard.
meet the AIMA, but if you're going for points under the adjustable block program for certain things, you would be looking for the DNR points too.
Okay,
And the DNR scorecard is pretty easy to follow and consistent with the McHenry County vegetation standards.
Yep.
My question for staff is that the testimony is inconsistent with the application that's submitted, right? The testimony is that they're gonna do native plantings. and
where
that
does it
it's-
say in the application we won't go with
It
native?
says section 9.0, it says it's
Okay.
equivocal, you may, you might, it's equivocating about the seed mix,
Oh,
and you're
okay.
allowed to do that, but I'm making a path here.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So if in the building permit stage, would the staff be following the testimony regarding the native plantings, or would they be following what was submitted as part of the application as the guidelines for?
It would be what is submitted at the time of building permit application.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they would not be bound to their testimony unless it was made a specific condition?
Correct.
Okay.
You can make that, I mean, that's not our intent. Our intent was to specify, and I apologize if the wording is unclear. Our intent is to specify native, non-invasive.
So you would not be
Native, not
opposed to
invasive.
an additional condition that says that you would plant consistent with the DNR scorecard requirements?
No, because that's our goal.
Okay, that's wonderful. So I will be proposing an additional amendment to the conditions that we make this contingent on IDNR pollinator scorecard standards, because I feel like that is consistent with what the district has asked us for, the McHenry County Conservation District, and it is most consistent with what's nearby. Another question that I had is about your fencing. It's 7-foot fencing and you're intending on leaving a wild area. Are you elevating the fencing for small animal pass-throughs at all, or is it all the way to the ground?
We're not at that point yet. I mean, generally we have to meet the requirements of the code. So,
It's becoming a trend in solar developments
yep,
to
to
have the
leave it up,
gaps,
yep, to
yeah.
let small animals through. So I don't think we'd have an issue with that.
No issue.
Okay.
And just sorry, just to go
Sure.
back to, so the second to last sentence in 9 just says, the project shall use native plant species and certified seed mixes. So maybe that covers us. Like I said, that definitely was not our intent to leave any.
No,
wiggle
I just
room
want to be
there.
clear, and I want to make sure that it's a condition on the record so
Sure.
that we're all on the same page and that they're, because I don't have a part of the building permit
Yeah.
process, and that's not generally a public process. Another question that I had is, the land to the north is leased by Hunt Club, and they do regular shooting out there. How is that going to affect this development or the plans for buffers and screenings?
Like deer hunting or birds? Okay. I mean, we put solar farms in agriculture areas all around that have, deer hunting both with the slugs or high power rifles. I mean, the bullets should not be leaving their property, it does happen, but it'd be just as any other damage, as a tree falling or hail or, that's uncontrollable by us, but, they would be replaced. And again, it goes back to the monitoring system and how we find, obviously it
You
seems
would
like
know.
you would never find a bullet hole in that sea of panels, but the computer system's gonna know that panel's not functioning and, throw a code that's gonna let the maintenance crew, investigate what's going on.
It's not gonna change their liability or anything like that, to your knowledge?
No,
Okay.
I mean, it'd be, it's.
Their use and enjoyment of their
Yeah,
current
yeah.
lease, right? They're not gonna have to get additional
Yeah.
insurance or anything?
I mean, obviously, there's houses around there that need to be,
Right.
whatever, or if there was cattle on this property, it'd be the same thing, so, yeah.
Okay. And then the other question that I had was about the native shrubs that you had proposed. I know that in our, in the conditions that we have, we were asking, sorry, let me just pull it up really quick. It's like half-formed thought in my head. Compliance with required landscape screening standards. And you're proposing straight natives, or are you proposing cultivars, or you're not there yet?
I think they're cultivars, again, so we have a whole landscape architecture team that does all that for me, so, they're the ones that offer the recommendations. And what I was talking about earlier was like based off the last project that we actually got to that point. So at this point, we would still be allowing the county to review that document and offer changes if there's things in there they don't like.
Okay, yeah, the county, because in one of the conditional use permit requirements, it was for native shrubs. So I
Okay.
just wanted to make that clear too. I think that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Nope, thank you.
Mr. Schnabel.
Yes, following on comment that you just made, the fencing itself is my only question. Is it agricultural style fencing or cyclone style fencing?
I believe it's required to be agricultural, correct, in your ordinance?
Not required. It
You
can
don't
be
have a
It can be
requirement,
chain
okay.
link or agricultural style.
Okay. Do we have a preference? I think we generally just kind of try to follow what the county requires.
I think you'll find a majority of the opinion is that the agricultural style
Sure.
fits the area
Yep.
much more nicely. And my next question is, if you do the ag fencing, would it be steel or wooden posts? Because I've seen both used.
Yeah, and again, I don't know that I know the answer to that question. That's, again, sometimes it depends. Steel is definitely probably more commonly used, just because it's easier to install, it's lower
I
maintenance.
guess, probably
Yeah.
so. My last question on that subject, and I'll be done. Your front entry point, there's a gate there. Is that going to be what we would think of as a sliding style gate or some other style?
They're typically hinged. So-
Center hinged?
Sir, would you identify
Yes,
yourself?
sorry. Christian Schlesinger, Senior Project Manager with Forefront Power.
Okay, that's it. I'll pass on.
Okay, Ms. Gardner.
All right. Yeah, my first question is, can you please spell your last name for me?
Yep, absolutely. It's V as in Victor, OLL, B as in boy, RECHT. I get asked that a lot.
Okay, thank you. And what was your position?
So I'm the wetlands manager / environmental lead for Westwood Professional Services. So I manage the team that put this application together. So we're their environmental engineering and survey consultant.
Okay, so are you then hired by Toro?
Yes,
Okay, so you're a subcontractor, in other words?
yes, yep.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to get clear on that because I thought originally you said you were an engineer and then later you said I'm not an engineer.
Yeah, I work for an engineering firm. So yeah, like my background's environmental.
Okay, all right, on with the real questions. Okay, now, you were talking about the screening, that some of it is fast-growing and some of it is a little slower. First of all, what size of plantings are you considering for this?
They're the 5-gallon pots generally,
So height, width?
a couple feet tall. And then we generally like to plant I know it doesn't provide the screening instantly, but the smaller pots tend to grow better. If we try to move big shrubs and survivability goes way down. So for long term, we prefer to go with those smaller pot sizes, younger plants, and get them growing. But again, that's why we're planting species that are growing a couple feet a year. So, within 3 years, we're pushing 6 feet. And within 4 years, those faster growing species should be already taller than the fence.
Okay,
And also shrub, and so they're planted in two staggered rows.
that's what I was just gonna ask.
So again, so they're staggered, so as they grow up, they have room to grow out and get bushy, but they also are
Like
staggered, so
double.
that screens more completely.
Okay, thank you. And about the maintenance of the screening on the site. Now, the perimeter stuff will be tended to probably rarely, right?
Yeah, so as a portion of this, then, as we get to the next steps, we'll develop what's called the vegetative maintenance, planting and maintenance plan. And so that'll be a plan that will actually show the plantings, that's where the species will actually be specified, and even locations of the species are specified. But also within that is the vegetative maintenance plan, which will include, all the invasive species control, the planting and seeding and the maintenance of the under panel vegetation, of the perimeter pollinator mix, and also the shrubs. So there's a long-term plan, and that plan will include replacing, if we have individuals that die, it'll have the replacement plan in place for that also.
Okay, so on the plantings that are under the panels, what type of maintenance do you think those will need? I know you don't know what the plants are yet.
Yeah, well, and again, it'll probably be mowing at first, generally to keep, mostly to keep the invasive species under control. But the idea is that the plant mix is low enough growing that they can kind of let them go once they become established. And then also, as technology moves forward, we're seeing a lot of innovative things where like they're grazing sheep in there and things like that to eliminate the mowing. So, but again, that's where that vegetative maintenance plan will come to effect. It'll essentially detail all that out.
Okay. And you think the mowing will take place how many times a year?
It's totally a lot of it's gonna depend on what there is for invasive species out there and, how they're growing and what they are. A lot of the annual invasive species, it's easier to mow them than to spray them. Some of the tougher, like green canary grass and things, perennials you need to spray for, but generally what we see is more mowing earlier as a site becomes established and then less and less. And sometimes it's even spot mowing. If you have a portion of the project that's got a lot of thistle in it, they may mow that, but they may not mow the entire site.
Okay. Now for the construction of this site, what do you see as the time frame for this? Once you are approved and you're, ready to go out the gate from this date to this date, how long?
Start to finish
Yep.
construction, 16 to 20 weeks.
So like 4 or 5 months?
Correct.
Okay. And this will be done during warmer weather, of course.
Yeah, preferably. We try to
Those
avoid
holes
the
in
winter. Yeah.
So we're talking 4 to 5 months, isn't it? Now, we've all had, this question answered, but just for the sake of everybody else here, I have some questions on the weather resistance of these panels, like heavy snow, for instance. How is that handled? Does that just block the sun for as long as it's there, or?
It can block the sun temporarily. These are on tilt access trackers, so they're going to move. So especially if they're laying flat, they may collect a lot of snow. But generally, they're black in color, and as they move, they'll get a little bit warm from the sun, and then the snow will slide off. So generally, we don't have to do snow removal for them. And I don't know, do you guys ever? That's not really.
No need. They haven't had need to have snow removal.
Yeah,
And
bite
like
your
that.
tongue right now. You never know here.
These are also engineered, so there'll be a structural engineer that will take care of the structural documents, and they'll be signed by a licensed engineer that will take that into consideration.
Okay, and let's say, for instance, we have one of those horrible hailstorms for 20 minutes where golf balls come down. How do they handle those? Does that break them?
It can. Again, a lot of it depends on the angle of the panel when the storm hits. The angle of the hail. And they are fairly robust, but there is potential. But again, it's no different than a house or a roof or anything. There is a risk.
Yeah.
But again, that's what the maintenance system is for, is to replace it as required.
Okay. Now,
These are also constructed with laminated glass, so if there is any type of damage to them.
it holds it in.
Correct.
Okay, but then they're not working, right?
That's when the monitoring system, remote
Yeah.
monitoring system
Right.
comes in.
Okay. So, moving away from that topic, is there any cost benefit to the people who live around this site?
So, yeah, I'll take that. So this is considered community solar. And
is?
yes.
Okay,
So there will be subscription, we partner with a subscription company, and they'll go out to the local community residents as well as businesses who could subscribe into the electric production and save some money on their electric bills.
What kind of discount could they look for?
I don't know the answer to that. It varies based on the time commitment. So there's some flexibility in the agreements that they have with the subscription companies. So you could do a 1-year commitment, you could do a 10-year commitment, and then it's going to adjust accordingly. So it's hard to really pinpoint, what the savings would be. But there is a savings for basically doing nothing, other than just subscribing. And there's opt-out options as well, so it's not a long if you don't want it to be. In addition, there's some tax benefits. And so I had our senior tax manager kind of do an estimate on what the tax advantages are going to be, and it comes out to about $500,000 over the life of this system.
So that would be 35 years?
You had said 35.
I think
before,
30 or
but
35.
It's typically we engage in a 20-year lease with 2 5-year options with the landowner.
Okay, and what was the dollar amount?
About, it's just under $500,000.
So 500,000 for 20 to 30 years? Okay. And you said you're a community-based solar facility, so are you in partnership with any community facilities?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, some of the other community-based solar farms have come in and have given us details on who they are partnered with within the community, like for instance, a school or a park district or the conservation district or something like that.
Sure. This facility is not partnered with anybody locally, so the subscriptions would be open to the local residents and businesses.
Okay. I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cozen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you have other facilities either in the pipeline or already operational within the northern part of Illinois?
The answer is yes, but I don't know the specifics. I don't know the exact locations, and we're also, in the process of permitting, similar to today with this application that we have with other counties here in the state.
Let me narrow the question. Do you have any that are operating in the northern part of Illinois within the Commonwealth Edison service area?
Under construction.
Under construction. Are they all community-based?
Yes.
Also do.
Yes, sorry. We also have some schools that we have partnered with as well.
And again, please identify yourself. This is being recorded,
Oh,
and
sorry.
so we need to know who's
Yep.
talking.
Got it.
How long have you been in business in Illinois?
Christian Schlesinger, Forefront Power. We've been operating in Illinois about 5 years now.
And Matt Falber from Westwood. We've been doing renewable energy projects in Illinois for about 15 years.
Turning to the site plan layout, which is identified as Exhibit 6, you have a single 20-foot wide access drive. What is the proposed or the standard material for that drive?
It would be a gravel surface.
You also show 2 location pads. Can you give the approximate size of each pad and what would be the material?
Those are generally poured concrete slabs. I don't know, 10 by 20.
Yeah, just approximate. I wouldn't.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is that the extent of any improved surface on the property?
Yes. Yep. So all the racking will be pounded piers, so steel posts pounded down. The fence posts will be most likely pounded in. So really the only grading on site would be just those little pads, and then any grading needed for the road.
As well as posts that may be installed for the perimeter fence?
Yeah, they could either be poured. They're likely going to be pounded also. So. You know, the goal is to really keep the topsoil as is to the extent possible. You know, because this is a temporary use, and the goal is to make it as easy as possible to decommission the site and put it back into agricultural production, you know, if that's what the landowner chooses to do.
So, just to be clear, so what is the present use of the property as it exists today?
Row crop agriculture, corn and bean rotation.
And your use does not require any stripping of the site, removal of topsoil?
No.
Regrading of the site?
No, again, that's our goal, is to not do any of that, so.
In terms of your material description, there's a small table, small from a perspective of the scale of the drawing. It shows that you'll have 8,700 panels
Yes.
on the site?
Yep.
And these panels are orientated from west to east and move by some mechanism associated with the sun?
Yep, they're oriented north to south, and then
Sorry.
they'll tilt.
They're orientated?
Oh, I'm sorry, the panels are oriented, yeah, east to west,
East to
on
west.
racking oriented north to
Right,
south.
right. I'm
Yep.
Sorry, you threw me on that because
Yep.
one of the issues is the paddlers on the Nippersick Creek, which direction they would be likely paddling, and whether or not their viewscape would be seen and to what duration they would be seen.
Yep. Yeah, and the, you know, there's some existing woody vegetation between the creek and our site, you know, and the creek sits down from our site. So, and then we also are set back, the panels are set back 70 feet from our property line because we have a 50-foot setback for the perimeter fence, and then there's another 10 or 20-foot setback from the perimeter fence to panels. So, you know, when you think about, as you look up from the creek, the panels are really gonna be, if they're even visible, going to be very low on the horizon. And then, again, there'll be the native vegetation between there. You know, some of those grasses in the perimeter can grow up to 3 to 4 feet tall, so that'll provide a little bit more screening also.
Plus they'll be moving in terms
Yeah,
of
and
time
they'll
of
be
day.
tilting, yep, so there'll be times like the face of the panel will be visible, and there'll be times when the back of the panel will be visible, so.
Are they reflective on the reverse side as well?
No, it's a very, very dull on the reverse side, so.
Right, so you're not drawing any current from the reverse side of the
Correct,
panels?
correct, yep.
And then for service purposes, the service drive is only for the purpose of going to the westernmost equipment pad?
Yes, yep, just to provide access, and then, you know, to provide access to the panels, you know, just get if they need to replace panels, they need to get able to get
Right,
back
but
there.
they'd be driving over the existing soil any more than
Correct.
drive to repair a tractor.
Yes.
On the
Yep.
furthest end. And the, what is, I wasn't able to read it clearly, would you know what the frontage is along Salone Road? I didn't see that in the plat of survey. I saw the bearings north and south, but I wasn't able to discern the frontage, and there doesn't seem to, and that would just give a perspective of the duration of visibility.
I can answer that. I think it's a 775 feet.
775 feet. So if somebody was driving along the frontage of that road, they would be passing 775 feet of panels, but the panels would be arrayed east to west.
Is that property corner to property corner?
Yeah, so the panels are actually narrower,
so.
because we are keeping, is that?
200 feet.
200 feet on the south side of the
So
property
it'd be less.
is staying open, so.
Right, but the easternmost portion of the property is how close to Solon Road?
Adjacent.
Right, but the panels, what is the closest panels to the travel way of Solon?
Oh,
Road?
50, or 70 feet, so there's a 50-foot setback, and then there's the other 20 feet from the fence, so the 70 feet would be the closest panels.
Is there any vegetative buffer along that, in that
Yep,
area?
the entire length. So and the vegetative buffer is the green dots on those, so that's kind of representing the 2 rows. So the entire frontage of the project will be screened from the road.
Back to the inverters, you mentioned that there's a hum. Do the inverters work when sunset, in the darkness, in the evening?
No, only when power is being produced.
Right, and that only occurs when the sun is up.
Correct, yep.
On the subject, just for a moment, and you indicated you did not have timely access to the report from McHenry County Conservation District. In your conversation with them, did you have the conversation involving the burning?
Yeah, and that was just before the meeting today. We met with Ed, who's seated back here, just, you know, to let them know that we're definitely willing to work with them. And we don't see their activities being detrimental to our facility or being need for them to be concerned about our facility.
Did they offer to share with you their natural resource conservation permit for burning?
No, we haven't seen that.
Did you raise any questions with them about whether or not your property or properties in the area not as yet developed for grasslands may be an exempt area for and prohibit burning?
No, we did not speak to that.
Any of the animals that are that you are trying to make passage for, are those game animals, would you know?
None of those, no. None of the listed species are game animals, no.
You had indicated, would you just confirm that you have no items that you would otherwise use that would be considered contaminated?
Nope, you know, they're just, it's the panels, you know, and the inverters.
And the components of them are just...
Mostly inert, you know, there are some in the solder and things, there are some, you know, metal used and things like that, but again, it's laminated glass, so even if the panel it gets hit by something, it's like safety glass in your car, you know, it's gonna stay intact, it's not gonna shatter, there's not gonna be glass and other components all over the ground.
So no worse than if one of the technicians were to lose his cell phone in that area?
Yeah, yep.
It would not for
Yep,
decades?
and honestly better because the entire panel's laminated, so, and we don't have lithium batteries in them.
I thank you for the time.
Mr. Jers, any questions?
Yes. One of the advantages of being the last to be asked is most of my questions have been asked already by my colleagues. But I'd have just a few. Your northern boundary faces the Nippersink Creek, which is used for recreation by the county. It's kind of a public thoroughfare.
Yep.
The screen plantings that are the little black dots will screen it from vehicular traffic, but you only go back less than a quarter of the way on your northern boundary that faces the creek.
Yep.
Are you opposed to running these screen plantings across the northern property line?
We're not opposed, but there's also quite a bit of natural screening there, and it's hard to see in this photo, but I think one of the other ones shows it better.
Do you have an aerial photograph?
Yep, so that one, you can see that like above the sea in the Cedar Vale, there's a natural area that's not been disturbed or cropped that has quite a few trees in it.
Okay, I can see that.
And then similarly, you can see to the south, there's a very heavy tree line on the south end of the property that screens to the south.
Okay. That clarifies that. Thank you. That is all I have at this time.
I just have some questions regarding the Water Resources Division from the
Sure. Yep.
staff plat review. And again, it's regarding the hydrological conditions of the property. So they were recommending developing a seed mix that varies and is suited to the varying degrees of floodplain and hydrologic change. Have you reviewed all these different comments?
Yes, I have. Yep.
And are you willing to accommodate whatever concerns that they have or what they would want you to do?
Yep, we're working to work with both them and with the district with the seed mixes. So the seed mixes are probably the easiest thing to modify, you know, as we get to that point.
And as well, the drain tile survey to be completed prior to the final design?
Yep, and that's a requirement of the agricultural impact
I
mitigation
wasn't sure if
agreement.
they wanted it before final design, if
Oh.
in the AMA or not.
No, not final design, but before construction in the AMA. So.
Yeah, well, this is asking for it
Yep.
to be completed prior to final design. Just because, you know, if there's so many and they're encountered that then, you know, they need to be replaced,
Yep.
of course, and so
Yep.
that there's no impact on surrounding farmland or other drainage. So you're you're satisfied that you can comply with all the requests and.
Yes, yep, we're committed to that because we have a fully executed document with them, so.
Okay, okay. All right, those are my questions. So again, now we'll open it to the public for questions. And again, as far as citing this with the state, I mean, that's nothing we can change. But as far as conditions, questions regarding what the petitioner has in their testimony, whatever you would like to ask them now would be your time. I'll use the timer on my phone. When you come up to ask your questions, you need to identify yourself and your address, and then you're allowed your 3 minutes. So if anybody would like to come up, anyone want to ask questions?
I have one.
Okay.
My name is David Cook. I own a real estate holding company.
Please give your name and address.
My name is David Cook. I live at 12219 Cooney Drive here in Woodstock.
Okay.
I own a real estate holding company that has investments in the Stonegate subdivision. And my concern is that if that vegetation barrier on the south side.
You have to ask a question of him.
Yeah.
It's not your comments,
Okay,
but a
I'm
question
sorry.
of him.
That vegetation barrier is only going to come back about 1/5 of the way.
Yes, because there is an existing vegetative barrier to the south there on the Bagby parcel.
But it doesn't go all the way back.
No, the existing one is about 700 feet from the road, and then we are proposing 500 feet from the road right now.
And what would you say to some of the homeowners that live high up on those elevations that have multi-million-dollar homes that are going to have to look down on this Japanese artwork for 20 to 30 years?
If you look at the photo, the site sits lower, so it's down, it's not up. And there is
The
screening
houses
there.
are up.
Okay.
And you expect them to witness this for 25 to 30 years.
You have to ask regarding this testimony, I mean, if you want to put that in your comments, but you have
No.
to ask him questions regarding his testimony, sir.
That's all I have.
Is there anyone else with questions? Yes?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Cindy Squirkrud. I live at 4209 West Solon Road, so across the creek from this property. I'm generally supportive of solar farms, but as always, the plans need to fit the site and protect the environment. So I have 4 questions that haven't been addressed to that end. Oops, sorry. The property is in the floodplain, and it looks to me like the panels do not completely avoid the floodplain as our county recommends. And I've certainly seen Nippersink Creek flood. Have you taken that into the account? Will the panels withstand floating logs, et cetera? I looked at page 81 in the packet that has a soil and water conservation district map that shows about 1/3 of the parcel is in the 500-year floodplain.
Yep, so the perimeter fence will protect the panels. And then the geotech will be done to make sure that the piers are properly engineered. And the panels will be required to be above the base flood elevation. So the electrical equipment and the panels will need to be higher than the base flood elevation for a 100-year flood event.
Okay, thank you.
So a 500-year floodplain is quite a bit wider. So
Yeah.
obviously it's a 500-year event versus a 100-year event. So most design, even for homes and things, do not need to stay out of the 500-year floodplain. It's just when you're within the 100-year floodplain, you need to be addressing flooding issues.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah. The times are changing, the storms are stronger. Okay, I better get on with my questions. Are you proposing that you will avoid all wetland impacts with the project? Again, Soil and Water provided a map on page 87 that shows the wetlands and the required buffer for wetlands and farm wetlands, and it looks to me like the layout cuts into those wetland areas.
So all the wetlands now are desktop wetlands.
Yeah.
So those are, and that's my background. So what wetlands? So the mapping on site is what different agencies have decided could potentially be wetlands. So before we go to construction, we will do a wetland delineation, which is a field wetland delineation where, a qualified in these cropped areas, what's called an off-site hydrology review, where we look at, because with the corn on site, the wetlands can be plowed. So it will include that. And then when we get to that point, depending on what ours for wetlands, we potentially could be putting panels and fencing in wetlands. But generally, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers does not require a permit for that. But we would still go through the process and require document and obtain all the required documentation that we're complying with the rules. Because the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is the agency that regulates wetlands in Illinois.
Yeah.
And these wetlands definitely will be core jurisdictional because they're directly adjacent to the stream, so.
Okay.
And again, though, you know, if we do impact wetlands, we're gonna be impacting wetlands that are currently farmed. And as a part of that, we'll be restoring vegetation in them. So even if we put panels over them, the wetlands will probably function at a higher value than they are currently.
Do his answers count for my time?
I'll let you ask one more.
Okay, I'm going to ask what I think is my most important question. Will you be using biodegradable oil in the transformers on site, and will they be placed on a containment pad? I'm concerned about potential contamination.
Yeah, Christian, I don't deal with the transformers too much. Generally, there does have to be an SPCC, which is a spill prevention control plan. So that will need to be done for the site, and that will address all the requirements. And I honestly, I'm not sure if secondary containment is required for them, but if it is, it definitely will be included in the plan. And I'm not an electrical engineer, so I'm not sure. I know the transformers fluids are getting safer and safer, but I don't know if they'll be biodegradable.
Just Christian from Forefront Power. The transformers have not been procured yet. There'll be an engineer of record that's licensed here in Illinois that will design the final electrical plan, which would include the specifications for those transformers. So we could certainly talk to that engineer and recommend that we use some.
Okay, I'll make my other questions into comments.
Okay. All right, what else?
Ross Anderson, 3602 Greenleaf Court, Spring Grove, Illinois. Real quick, the access road, what kind of foundation will that be able to support as far as weight load? I.e. emergency vehicles that potentially might have to come in there with a water tanker and stuff like that?
Yep, it'll meet the fire code. So we will be working with the fire district. They've already seen the plans preliminarily, but yep, so that road will meet the required, what the fire department requires for access. And that's really the biggest thing, because all of our components are very light. So fire would be the heaviest vehicles that would be on there.
Okay. The other thing, in a fire situation, what kind of carcinogens are released from your panels into the neighboring areas?
Well, the panels are glass on the outside, so they really don't burn. I mean, if there was a fire on site, it's mainly going to be wire. You know,
right.
the
and
wires.
Wire has carcinogens.
Wires has plastic, yeah, but I mean, even volume-wise, it's probably less than like a house fire, you know, or a barn fire or something like that, or a vehicle fire. Because
I tend to disagree with you on that, but I hope that you guys would take into consideration the carcinogens that would be released on those, because those do burn sometimes.
Yep.
And whether you want to call it burning or shorting out, it emits the carcinogens. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan Gardner, 4219 West Solon Road, Richmond. I have the land adjacent to the north of the property there. My family's been there 187 years. We've had cattle out there. Is there any concern we need to have for cattle if they come all the way up to the fence, any kind of runoff of any sort at all, or carcinogens or anything toxic that can get into what the cattle eat or graze? And the nipper sink also, you know,
Yep.
for drinking water.
Yeah, nope, and you know, I mean, the fence it's not electrified. There's no, you know, the fence is a fence. So, and really, yeah, once the site is constructed, I mean, during construction, we have to have a stormwater pollution prevention plan. So there'll be no runoff from the site during construction. You know, we can't have any untreated water leaving the site. And then once the site is fully vegetated, it's stable. I mean, there will be very little runoff. There'll be less runoff than now because, you know, it's an agricultural field now and heavy rain events that go somewhere. But when you're fully vegetated, you know, like your cattle pasture gets a heavy rain, it tends to sit there more.
Yeah.
So that's what that will be. And again, you know, the other thing is like, you know, neighbors, weeds are always a concern. You know, we don't want to be spreading invasive species onto your site, you know, and that's a big part of our vegetation management plan is to control invasives.
Okay. Hunting was brought up earlier. We do lease that land out to a hunt club. As far as you know, are there any restrictions for hunting near solar panels? You know, they have a certain amount, they have to stay away from houses or structures. Is there any distance they would need to stay away from solar panels?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. In our location, there are 2 other solar farms going up within probably 3 to 4 miles. Just, I don't know how the technology works. Are there any concerns that residents need to have for that much of a concentration of solar farms within that small area?
No, I mean, there's no electromagnetic pulse, there's no, you know, we hear that sometimes, but I mean, people put them on their houses.
Yeah, not this quantity.
Not that quantity, but you know, yeah, I mean, you know, there are people that have quite a few panels on their house. I mean, there's really not any proven health detriments from panels.
Okay, so I mean, someone could live in the middle of that solar farm and wouldn't have anything detrimental.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be better than under a high power transmission line. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Ed Collins, McHenry County Conservation District. Do you want my home address?
No, you don't need your phone, just your address.
9503 Wright Road, Harvard, Illinois. I just have 2 questions, and one revolves around fire. It's good to hear that prescription burning isn't a problem since the fields we have to burn are under grant obligations, and we'll be burning them for the whole duration of the lease. Would you be open to putting a couple of access gates along the south boundary? And my reason for that is if we're burning, we have plenty of equipment out there, but somebody flipping a cigarette in springtime on the side of the road, you might have to have the fire department enter from 2 different directions. And so it might be valuable to have an access gate on the south boundary as well as on your main boundary of Solon Road, especially if it's a grass fire. Because if it's burning on our property or if it starts on yours, it's going to go on both. And the fire department will attack it from the perspective of the whole fire. So just consider that. It is a question if you would be willing to do that. The other question I have is regarding your screening plantings. Do you plan to fence them from deer? Because if you don't, you may wind up replacing them every year down in that neck of the woods. And if what you're trying to do is establish a screen for the neighbors, you might need to protect them.
Depending on how bad it is, they may temporarily, like, you know, put the fencing around the individual plants to get them rolling, so yeah.
Okay, and my last comment question is good luck with those soils.
Okay. All right, at this time, we'll move on to a report from staff.
Can I ask a question real quick before?
Oh, absolutely.
So the water resources manager, the memo that he had put out indicated that there was an IDNR floodway along the far western portion of the property.
Yep.
Do you plan to get an IDNR floodway permit for that, or would that impact the design? Would you be eliminating any of that?
At this point, we'd get the permit.
Okay, and if the wetland delineation shows that any of those panels need to be relocated, would you just reduce the system size and remove those panels, or do you think that that would redesign the site at all?
We would probably go through the wetland permitting process with the U.S. Army.
Okay, so this is pretty set as far as where the panels are shown?
Yeah, and so, like I said, we've been doing a lot of projects in Illinois, working with the Corps very closely, and generally, as long as we're not putting roads or doing grading in the wetlands, the pounded piers are generally not looked as impacts by the Corps of Engineers, because it's not a discharge of fill, and we're not changing the cross-section or flow of the water in the wetland.
Okay.
So.
All right, well then with that, so the property is zoned A1 Agriculture District, is also surrounded by agricultural zoning. The Village of Spring Grove limits do abut the property just to the southeast. The surrounding land uses are mainly agricultural. with some residential uses across the street to the east, as well as a cemetery that's designated on our maps here as government institutional use there. Future land use designation for this property is actually an estate. So at the end of the life of this project, whether it be deemed appropriate for residential development or it could be returned to agricultural. And I had gone out to the site, taken a few photos just to kind of show what was in the area. I did not see anything that seemed like it would be obtrusive to any surrounding landowners. I feel that all the minimum standards of the state have been met, and I have no objections.
My apologies for not asking you
No,
for
that's okay.
questions
No
before
problem. No problem.
Does any member of the board have, yes, go ahead, Mr. Costa.
Thank you. Did the municipality of Spring Grove provide a comment?
I haven't received anything.
Thank you. That's the extent of my question.
Any other questions by members of the board? Okay. So at this time, we'll go to our comment period. Any member of the public that would like to give comments, again, you'll have your 3 minutes. So if you'd like to give a comment, again, come up and identify yourself, and you don't have to give your address because you did it the first time, and you'll have your 3 minutes. Does anyone want to give a comment? Yeah, go ahead.
Again, Cindy Skurkrud, I'm a neighbor across the street. I'm also a member of the Environmental Defenders of McHenry County, and I've discussed this project with them. Both I and the defenders are generally supportive of solar farms and that they can be clean, quiet, non-polluting neighbors. If planted with low-profile native prairie plants, they can be good for pollinators and benefit our natural and agricultural lands. Kind of building on my questions here would be my recommendations. I'm certainly pleased to hear about the plans for native plantings under the panels in the perimeter and for the screening. It's good that you'll work with MCCD on plant choice. The landscape plan should include all 3 of those areas and comply with the IDNR pollinator plant standards as was discussed earlier. This was a question I had, but I'm kind of put it in the form of a statement. Given that the site is nearly all hydric soils, I think you'd need to think carefully about the best time of year to install the panels. For example, can work be done on frozen or nearly frozen ground, or could you wait for very dry times? I think that follows up on Ed's comment with good luck with these soils. I would recommend that you use agree to use biodegradable oil in the transformers in site and have some kind of containment pad given the potential for flooding, given the potential of the creek nearby. And this, well, I guess this is kind of a question, but I know this has come up a lot of concerns about fire department and such, and I know our local fire department is concerned. Will there be additional funding coming into the fire department with the additional taxes on the solar farm infrastructure on this site? And I think it would be useful for them to know, what will you be putting into their coffers to help them be prepared for any issues at this site. And those are my comments.
Anyone else want to give comments?
Ryan Gardner, again, adjacent to the north. The question was asked before about vegetation along that north part where it only goes a certain amount. We have a field that we till and we plant for that first however many feet you were talking, 500, 700 feet or whatever. And then the tree line that goes after that, I guess the question was about viewing from the Nippersink. My only comment would be at some point I may take down a bunch of trees, and so you may want to consider that vegetation going further just because we're constantly changing the makeup of our land. And if I were to take out all those trees, it would definitely be more viewable from the Nippersink, whether it's I don't want to use the word ugly, but for non-natural for canoers and kayakers and things like that. But We don't have plans to take down trees or anything, but it's a lot of scrub trees, and we are constantly doing that. So I don't know if you wanted to maybe look at extending that vegetation. I know the Bagby property, I think he's been working on cleaning some of that line out too, so I don't know if he's planning on leaving trees on his side or exactly where it goes along that fence line, so just maybe take that into consideration.
Anyone else?
Russ Anderson, Spring Grove. One other consideration, if this does get passed, what are you guys prepared to do for road cleaning up? Because as this gentleman's kind of alluding to, it's gonna get muddy and messy, and the residents in that area shouldn't have to just suffice for the time and deal with the mud that's gonna be strung along the roads. So maybe have a plan for that. Okay. And another comment was, how far does this, I think you called it a community-based solar farm, how far does that reach as far as who's eligible for that?
Can we answer questions during the
Yeah, I was
conversation?
gonna ask
After
that.
you finish your comments,
Okay.
then maybe you can answer that. You have the rest, you're done?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Okay, we can, now then?
Yeah.
Okay, sure, Matt Vogt from Westwood. So as far as the roads, yeah, we will have a road use agreement with the county. And so that'll address the weights of vehicles coming in, the plan, the access point, and then it'll also address things like vehicle tracking. So generally, also as a part of a portion of the SWIP, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, we have to have some sort of perimeter controls, including the road. So when construction equipment comes on or off the road, there's usually a gravel pad there that the vehicles can be rinsed off and we can keep from tracking onto the public road.
Christian from Forefront. So addressing the comment about how far out does this subscription partner go? So the radius grows until it's 100% subscribed. So it starts close to the facility location or the substation that the utility owns, and then it'll continue to grow that radius out in the outreach to the residents and businesses until we're 100% subscribed.
Does that stay in Illinois?
It has to stay within the utilities, that particular grid, that location for that utility.
And then I just have a follow-up question. So the $1.5 million tax advantage over 30 years, some of that would go to the fire district, correct? Any taxing body in this area that would get benefit from the increased assessment on this property?
I think it goes to the taxing authorities and then whoever those authorities are. I don't know how that's going to end up being divided, but I think that's up to the authorities themselves, how they divide that.
And how many instances have you had that you've heard of where there has been a fire in solar panels? I'm not aware of any. And
None of the projects I've worked on.
No, Forefront certainly has not experienced anything, and then, I don't even know the number of installations that we've completed across the country. So no, we're unaware of that.
Okay. Do you have a closing statement?
Just thank you everyone for your time, and we're definitely here to work with the community, and as we move this project forward, we definitely look to working with the Conservation District on addressing their concerns on their property. So.
Okay. We don't have a full board today. Our one member didn't come unless there's an emergency or something, so we only have 6 people, and you're entitled to 7 votes. You need 5 affirmative votes, for a positive recommendation to the county board. Would you like us to take a vote today? Would you like us to wait until we have 7 members? It's up to you as a petitioner.
For you.
So if So you need a minimum of 5, is that correct? Positive votes. And if 5 is not achieved, then what's?
Then it goes as no recommendation to the county board.
Oh, it moves forward just without a recommendation. Understand.
I'm open to a vote today.
Okay. Then at this time, we will close the hearing portion of the meeting and we will open the voting portion of the meeting. Again, this is application 2023-050. The applicant is Toro Construction CS Partnership LLC. The request is for a conditional use permit to allow a commercial solar energy facility. And the address is on South Solon Road, Spring Grove, Illinois. The PIN number is 04-27-400-001. We have a number of conditions that have been proposed by staff. I would like to go through those. Number 1, the conditional use shall have no time limit unless the use is abandoned as specified in 16.56.030.pp.4 of the McHenry County Unified Development Ordinance. Number 2, site development shall be in substantial conformance with the site plan prepared by Westwood Professional Services dated January 12, 2024 and received by the Department of Planning and Development on January 16, 2024. Number 3, the decommissioning plan shall be applicable in part as well as whole. If any portion of the commercial solar energy facility ceases to perform its intended function for more than 12 consecutive months, that portion of the facility shall be decommissioned in compliance with all the terms of the decommissioning plan. Number 4, a McHenry County stormwater management permit shall be secured prior to construction. Any damaged drainage tile shall be repaired at the expense of the petitioner and in a manner satisfactory to the Water Resources Division Manager. Number 5, a detailed landscape plan illustrating compliance with required landscape screening standards shall be approved by the zoning enforcement officer prior to issuance of a construction/building permit. Is that
Yeah, I'd like to make a change to that one.
Yeah.
But we're not there yet, right?
You can go ahead and propose
Okay.
a change to that.
Based on the testimony and discussion with staff, I'd like to make a small change to condition number 5 to state simply that a detailed landscape plan illustrating compliance with IDNR pollinator scorecard standards and with required landscape screening standards shall be approved by the zoning enforcement officer prior to issuance of construction/building permit. But before I go ahead and make that motion, that's fine, right? Yes, because the zoning enforcement officer would be able to look at the DNR pollinator scorecard seed mix
Yes.
and make, okay.
Yes,
So
correct.
that was the motion that I would like to make.
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion has been made by Ms. Beverly, seconded by Mr. Schnabel. Discussion, Ms. Beverly?
Based on testimony during the hearing part of this hearing, the petitioner is amenable to following the DNR pollinator scorecard standards. This condition is consistent with recommendations from the state's attorney's office on our compliance with the Solar Siting Act. And this condition is consistent with the request from the McHenry County Conservation District regarding plantings. So I would suggest that we approve that condition.
Any other discussion, members of the board? Mr. Jers?
I like what she just said, but the pages aren't numbered here, but it's that page of the application where it says proposed or staff assessment on our packet.
Yes, number 5.
I would like to put underneath number 9, I would like to add number 10.
Oh, we can't. We're just dealing with this motion right now.
Okay,
So any discussion on this motion?
no.
Okay, so I'll call for the vote on modifying condition number 5. Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Cozen?
Yes.
Mr. Schnabel?
Yes.
Ms. Beverly?
Yes.
Mr. Jers?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, so this is approved 6-0. All right, so moving on, I will go to condition number 7. Fencing shall be provided in compliance with the National Electrical Code as applicable. The use of barbed wire is prohibited. Setting fence posts in concrete is prohibited except for gate posts and where otherwise required for stability. Number 7, recommendations made by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources in their December 19, 2023 letter to the applicants with regard to protected resources in the vicinity of the project location shall be followed. Number 8, all requirements of McHenry County Unified Development Ordinance 16.56.030.pp as amended, subject to State of Illinois Public Act 102-1123, shall be met or exceeded unless specifically amended by this conditional use permit. Number 9, all other federal, state, and local laws shall be met. Okay, Mr. Jers, you had another proposed condition?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would, for the reasons that some of the people in the room had stated, some of these tree lines to the west of where the proposed screen plantings stop, and they're only coming back 500 feet, the little black dots, that the, and then for the travelers on the Nippersink Creek and for the estate homes to the south boundary, I would like to make condition number 10 that the site be surrounded with screen plantings and not just on the road frontage of Solon Road.
Is there a second?
We need to make a motion.
Yeah.
Tom, are you talking about the
Okay.
entire?
Can we clarify?
Are you talking about the entire perimeter of the whole
Yes.
site?
I am.
Is there a second? That motion fails for lack of a second. So that will not be an added condition. Are there any other proposed conditions? Okay, at this time, I would consider a motion to approve the conditions.
I'll make that motion, Jessica.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Ms. Beverly, seconded by Mr. Schnabel to approve the conditions. Discussion?
These conditions are consistent with solar farm developments in the county. These conditions are also consistent with what we're permitted to do under Illinois Public Act 102-1123. And the petitioner has agreed to these conditions, and I think that these should move forward.
Mr. Schnabel, any discussion?
I'm in agreement and will be supporting this petition.
We're just talking conditions right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm in support of the conditions.
Okay, Ms. Gardner?
No comment.
Mr. Cozen?
No comments.
Mr. Jers?
No.
Okay, so I'll take the vote. Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Cozen?
Yes.
Mr. Schnabel?
Yes.
Ms. Beverly?
Yes.
Mr. Jers?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. So the conditions are approved 6-0. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
I'll make that motion. This is Jessica Beverly.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Ms. Beverly, seconded by Ms. Gardner. Discussion, Ms. Beverly.
Thank you. It appears that the petitioner has hired a preeminent expert who is licensed in McHenry County to conduct the wetland delineation survey and any wetland mitigation that must happen on this property. We have reviewed the comments from the McHenry County Conservation District, and the petitioner has agreed to work with them moving forward regarding their concerns about this property. Not every solar project that has come before this board has been a great project or even a good project, but under the state of Illinois, we are bound to pass these, to award these conditional use permits if it is consistent with Illinois Public Act 102-1123. This project is, it is a credit to the petitioner that they are willing to work with the neighbors and that they are willing to work with native pollinator plantings to improve the site from its current uses. And I think that this is a worthy project for the county to move forward with.
Mr. Schnabel.
Yeah, I think the petitioner's done a good job with the presentation, and I would say that there's no guarantee that this project will ever be built. As for those in the audience, it's increasingly likely these days, but we've approved many in the past that have not been constructed yet for years ago. So.
Please quiet in the audience.
So who knows with the connection agreements with ComEd and so on and so forth. I'm sure you're relatively confident it'll happen, or you wouldn't be bothering to do this, but I'll be supporting your petition.
Ms. Gardner?
I agree with what's been said. I feel that there were some unanswered questions that you weren't prepared to answer, but that happens all the time with petitioners, so no harm there. I'm glad that there is a cost benefit to the residents around there, and that it is a community solar farm. And so I'm in favor.
Mr. Cozen?
In a struggle of some brevity, I will at least announce that I will be supporting this petition. But also to note, as quickly as I want to do, in Algonquin Township, I wish that we had the benefit before all my neighbors install within quite visibility solar panels on their roof. And had we had the access to community solars as they're now appearing within the, I would not be looking at 4 sets of different solar panels on their homes as the time goes on. The coverage area of the solar, of course, covers Commonwealth Edison, which most do not realize goes all the way to the Mississippi, to the Wisconsin state line, and I-80 to the south, excluding the city of Chicago. So anyone in that area, even the former hometown of President Reagan, will be able to benefit if nobody immediately within the area can serve. But it is also incumbent to note that as a member of the ZBA, we're limited in terms of our authority, has been pointed out from time to time. And one such authority is trying to set standards on the electrical and mechanical code. It would behoove those who follow that to note that variations of that code is now requiring biodegradable coolants where fan-operated systems require that access. And maybe in further reiterations of that code, it will exclude the application of any other types of coolants. But as a member of the ZBA, I have been told I don't have the opportunity to edit the electrical code. Along with an item of note, and that is concerning the movement of snow off the panels. It is something to be noted that when stoplights or traffic control figures went from incandescent to LED, they began to accumulate snow on them. And here in Illinois, we take pride in knowing that the patent was granted to create low-level voltage so that the snow would melt off those lights, and we no longer are struggling with that. I suspect that the next reiteration of solar panels, especially in our climbing points northerly, we will see low-level voltage to move that snow off that place, notwithstanding the 70-degree weather we're experiencing in February. And so just to reiterate, I will be supporting this petition. Thank you.
I also agree with my colleagues. I think this meets the standards in our ordinance. And working with, I'm sorry, Mr. Jers.
Yes,
I'm so
I
sorry.
always learn something when I listen to this gentleman. He's a historian, and he's got it down. I look forward to listening to him every meeting. I have no other comments besides that.
Okay. I'm so sorry. And I agree with my colleagues that I think the standards have been met, and I think that they will be working with Stormwater Management and the Water Resources Division, and there are some unique characteristics to this site that will have to be worked through, but through the standards that we have and the conditions we put on this, they'll be able to be successful. So I'm in favor of the petition. So at this time, I will call for the vote. Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Cozen?
Yes.
Mr. Schnabel?
Yes.
Ms. Beverly?
Yes.
Mr. Jers?
No.
And I will vote yes. So this will go to the county board with a 5-1 vote for approval. At this time, the hearing